The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
In Eretz Yisrael, there's a particular yeshiva that's off the beaten path. It's not in one of those urban areas. It's in a pastoral, pristine area with fields and forests around the yeshiva, not far away from a moshav. But the yeshiva campus itself is really isolated, and it enables a bachar, the avreichim, the faculty of the yeshiva, to live al taras hakodesh, away from the sights and sounds that could distract the person and maybe even bring them down. And they really could be totally immersed in their learning and attain levels they probably couldn't attain in other areas. There's one particular bachar in this yeshiva who struggled tremendously. He wasn't such about Kishrin. He had a hard time figuring out the logical gemaras and the Rishonim and Achrayim. And the yeshiva was a high-level yeshiva. Somehow he was accepted, but he struggled daily. And people tried to help him. Particularly, there was one Rabbi. There was one Rabbi who, after Shir, would sit down with him and try to explain to him the Gemara and the Rashi and the Tosfos and the Kasha and the Teretz, and sometimes he got it, and most times he didn't. And the Bachar started feeling really bad about himself, and he started slipping. The Rebbe tried everything that he could to bring the Bachar in, to spend extra time with him, to give him personal attention, but the Rebbe realized it wasn't going anywhere, and the Bachar was slipping further and further. One day the Rebbe said, "You know what, I think I have to speak to the Rosh Yeshiva. I don't think this yeshiva is the right type of place for him. You know, the level is a little bit too high. He's getting frustrated, and because he's getting frustrated, he's really slipping, he's falling. Maybe we have to find him a yeshiva that's more matim, that's more appropriate for him." He figured he's going to speak to the Rosh Yeshiva the next morning. That night, late at night, this particular Maggid Shir is sitting there in his study, and he's preparing. He gives a high-level shir. He's got to come up every day with a high-level shir with so many Bali Kishon, so many smart bachar, and the shir was a big pressure. As he's in the middle of learning, the absolute silence, the stillness of the night, which was the usual trademark for this pastoral yeshiva campus, was shattered by the sounds of the blades of a helicopter. And this Maggid Shir wonders, a helicopter? And he looks out goes onto his porch, goes onto his balcony, and he sees that the helicopter is landing in a field not far away from where the yeshiva is situated. He starts thinking to himself, wow, I wonder if there's like somebody locally here in this moshav who's maybe part of the Secret Service and they're coming to pick him up for a special mission. He wonders what, who, when, why. And he sees that the door to the helicopter opens and a fellow steps out and he pulls out a phone and he begins to talk on the phone. He waits, he's still watching. It's a very peculiar scene in the middle of the night, something like this in his moshav. These type of things never happened. And all of a sudden he sees that the fellow is another fellow standing next to the guy on the phone. He's wearing a white shirt. You can even see it sits from a distance. He goes, that must be one of our Bachrim. One of our Bachrim is part of the Shabak, part of the Secret Service. That's crazy. It's a good idea, but you can't be a Bachar in a yeshiva. And his curiosity gets the better of him. And he leaves his building. He goes running out to the field. And as he gets closer, he freezes in his tracks. It's that very Bachar. The one that he was going to ask to leave the yeshiva. Oh, is he going to get it? To have to leave the yeshiva. He should go to the army where he belongs. This is what he's doing. And as he gets closer, he slowly but surely sees the bachar motioning him that he should come. The boy's hobbling, goes running to the bachar, and he sees that the bachar's got a big bandage in the hip and the thigh area. And the fellow on the phone comes running over and says to him, you know, I came just in the nick of time. This Maggid Shir says, I don't know what's going on here. I'm lost. What's happening here? The bachar says, come, Rabbi, let me share with you what happened. The fellow that on the helicopter turns to the helicopter pilot and he says, turn off the rotors. We have to be part of this. I'll be back soon. And they hobble to the yeshiva. The Bachar says, Rabbi, I had a terrible, terrible day today. You tried to learn with me. I didn't get it. Other people tried. I was so depressed and I'm lying in bed at night and I just can't fall asleep. And I just feel so claustrophobic in this yeshiva and I don't feel myself and I feel depressed and I feel sad. The atzvus, the Shachar, it's really bad. I figured I'll go out for a walk. It's a beautiful night and this beautiful setting, and I'm walking in one of the fields behind the yeshiva, and I wasn't watching where I was walking. It was dark, and all of a sudden, I tripped on a large boulder. I didn't realize there was a jagged edge of stone jutting out from the boulder, and it got me in my femoral artery. And I'm lying there on the floor. I fall. I can't move, and all of a sudden, I feel a tremendous outpouring of blood by my hip area, and I realized what had happened. I tried getting up. No one's around. I tried calling. Nobody could hear me. And I realized I was going to die in that spot. What does a yid do when they've nowhere else to turn? I opened up my heart and I said, Rabbi Shalom, and I began to cry with my last koiches. Hashem, is this the end? Is this how it's going to go? Hashem, I promise you that if you give me another chance, then I'm going to give learning and avodas Hashem a chance like I never gave it before. I beg you, Rabbi Shalom, please save me. He says within the next 10 seconds, all of a sudden a helicopter appears from the distance, and it comes and it lands literally right next to me. And the man gets out and he's on the phone, and I start calling and screaming, and all of a sudden the man looks up. He hears someone calling, comes running over to me, and he sees I'm lying there and I'm bleeding out. He runs back to the helicopter. He brings the first aid kit like the helicopters have. He motions to pilot. They come, they apply deep pressure and a tourniquet, and they're able to stop the bleeding. And Rabbi, that's when you showed up. Just at that moment when he helped me up. Wow, the Maggid says, that's crazy. What are the chances of this happening? He turns to the fellow on the phone, the helicopter guy, goes, who are you? And what are you doing on our yeshuv? No one ever comes here in a helicopter. He says, I'm a wealthy businessman and I was flying. This is my personal helicopter. I go from one place to the other. When my father tried to call me, and I saw it was an important call, but I was on the helicopter. There was bad reception. There was too much noise. So I told the pilot, put me down on the ground in the nearest area that you can. And he saw this field and he put me down. I came out. I started to get on the phone, and all of a sudden I hear cries of help. And it's you, and I see what happened to you. And I realized that I could save your life, and I ran back. To make a very long story short, they were able to help the Bachar. He's able to recover. And two amazing things happen from this trip on that jutting stone. Number one, the Bachar becomes a different person. He realized, the fleetingness of life. He also had to fulfill his commitment that he told HaKadosh Baruch Hu he would redouble his efforts in the most incredible way possible. But it wasn't just the Bachar that was impacted and affected. The fellow who was on the phone, the wealthy fellow who was not a firm fellow, all of a sudden saw in the most incredible way the Yad Hashem, and he says, this is a message from Hashem. And he became very close to this Bachar, and very close to this Maggid Shir, and eventually him and his entire family were Chayzer B'tshuva. Incredible story, such an incredible impact of one person's tefillah in the deepest of times, in the deepest of distress, putting it all out there for Rabbi Shalom, saying, B'yad chav keruchi, there's no one else that could help me.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org